If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that we are doing a soil series, which is mulch, compost, and soil. And I wanted to break down the mulch just a little bit better for you. So we're going to do a little series on YouTube, and I'm going to break down each individual mulch for you that we use, the most common ones. And today, we're going to be talking about straw mulch. It's a good day. Well, it's kind of a sad day because I got to get rid of my couch garden. My garden couch, see? Straw couch. It's pretty sweet, isn't it? So here's the deal with straw mulch. Straw is awesome. It is the most, how do we say it? I guess I would say visually appealing in the garden, I feel like. And it's one of the most functional, but it doesn't have, it's cost prohibitive sometimes, but there's key components that help make it a great mulch. So when we buy this bale here of straw, it comes in pretty large pieces. If we come down here to where it fell off, you can see these are large pieces. That's where this bad boy comes in. It's a little bit more difficult than you would think. It's not like when you do leaves and then they just get mowed and sucked up. They actually fall on the ground, so then we gotta rake them up, but it's all good. We're gonna make some mulch real quick. Check this out. Use the lawnmower to chop up the straw. You need to have a mulching blade on it, because what that does is it cuts it up real finely and it doesn't shoot it out the side, it just drops it. But as you probably saw, the lawnmower, the mulch doesn't really suck up as good. You get a little bit in the bag, but not as much, so now we got a rake. But that's done. Let's talk about why we cut it up. So you can totally get a bale of straw, not hay. You have to get straw because hay will have the seeds, and then that's what will plant into your garden, and you'll just end up growing hay. So if you get a bale of straw, you can totally use this size, like just as it comes out, not an issue. And in fact, I use that over here in my strawberry beds, which we'll go look at in a second. But for my gardens, I like to chop it up, because then as it sits over the winter time, it'll start to compost, and then it'll feed my garden even more. And I mean, a lot of people use it for, weed suppression and stuff like that. But what I really use it for is the simple fact of putting organic matter back into my soil so that I can keep it nice and fluffy and airy and get the nutrients to go around. And as this stuff breaks down, it will attract worms, and then they will do their job in there too. So it's a win-win situation. Weed suppression cools the soil in the summer, keeps it warm in the winter. I know, magic, right? It cools and warms, shocker. And then it attracts worms, which in fact then kind of fertilizes even more. So it's kind of like letting your garden do the work for you. So you do a little bit of work now, and then throughout the season it'll continue to work for you. And that's a plus. Again, the one issue is that the mulch is a little bit cost prohibitive. It's not too bad. Straw, for example, this bale cost us $6, which isn't bad. But when we were talking on the podcast, and I'll put a link in the description to that episode, Batavia brought up that a bale of hay at her house, or excuse me, a bale of straw is about, I think she said like $60 or something crazy like that. But she lives in a big city, so that could be cost prohibitive. But even then, it doesn't matter. We can still make mulch. It's not a big deal. It's just maybe you can't use the straw, but it is what it is. The bale of straw comes in little blocks, and that's what you can take off in order to make it a little bit more manageable instead of just dumping a whole bale out there. So just take little blocks and do it as you need it, and keep it nice and short and easy. I get my straw cut up and I go to lay it. I like to put a 2 to 3 inch layer across my whole bed. So I have 4 8x4 beds in what I call the main part of my garden, and about half of a bale will cover those beds. So it's not too bad. About half a bale, don't quote me on that, but pretty close. So that's not too bad, and that's with chopping it up. If you don't chop it up, then it's not that big a deal. You can get, it'll probably spread more, but the problem I have with it is because it's so long that it can kind of leave gaps, so you have to really lay it on thick, and then that can let the light in and let the weeds go through. So you want really both of them to kind of, you want both of the benefits to come out of using this mulch. Bed here, we just laid down the mulch, and it's all straw, all of it. So you can see that we have right around 2 inches here, and around the base of the plants you want to kind of leave them a little gap around them. So I have to go back through and clean all these out just a little bit, you know, nothing major. Now this one I actually did the other day, and what happened was I used some of the compost I was making. Well, I was making leaf mulch, and when I put it out of my compost pile, I had some, not a whole lot, but a little bit of raw chicken manure. And being that it's winter, it's okay to put a little bit in because it will continue to break down, but I wanted to dilute it a little bit, so I just came through and put a light sprinkling of the straw on this one too. And when all of this gets cleared, all these parsnips come up, which I need to pull them up soon, then I will go through and lay the mulch down there as well. Because remember, if your soil's not happy, your garden's not happy. And if your garden's not happy, then that means that you're not going to be happy with what you get out of it. So let's make sure we amend our soil and put a lot of that organic matter back in. If you're anything like me and you watch a video and you're like, when do I put the mulch down? What do I do? Well, I'm here to tell you that fall, in my opinion, is the best time to put it down because it gives it time to decompose over the winter and create that little bit of compost layer on top and start to feed that soil. But if you can't get it down there in the fall, or it's too late in the season now, don't worry, you can still put it down in the spring. And a lot of times what I will do is I'll refresh it in the spring as well. So I haven't used mulch in my garden here until this year. I've only been in this garden for 3 years now, but my last garden that I had for 8 years, I would use mulch sporadically, and whenever I used a mulch, I realized that I had better results. So now we have a method that we have to collect stuff for mulch and use it and be a lot more cost effective. And if you put it down in the spring, you can refresh the top layer of it, and that will, one, make it look better, but two, it'll also give another layer of protection against the weeds. All you have to do is just move around it a little bit just to plant your stuff in the ground. You know, if you're sowing seeds, just create a little row and make that space, because the mulch will help with the erosion too. So when the wind blows or the snow melts or the rains come, it's a barrier against it, and it'll help with that. And it also helps with frost heaving in the wintertime. So when you get those days that are like freezing cold and it warms up freezing cold, stuff can actually get lifted out of the ground, and this will help with that. It'll help minimize that temperature change, so stuff doesn't actually get frost heaved as bad. And that really typically applies to your garlic and your onions. A lot of people say they got frost heaved because they didn't plant them deep enough, when in fact that may be part of it, but if you put that layer of mulch on top, then it would eliminate that as well. So it's kind of a benefit of the two. Get out, make some mulch, put it in your garden. We're going to be talking about leaves and wood chips as well, so don't worry, we got you covered all the way around, but I wanted to put it in specific videos so you guys could kind of pick what you wanted and go that way. But hit us up on all our social media platforms. Leave a comment and tell us what kind of mulch you're using in your garden down below, and check out the Backyard Gardens podcast. New episodes weekly every Thursday. Until next time, we'll catch you guys later.